Hello and welcome to the Zakariya Adeel podcast and also Heart Nation. This is going to be an interesting podcast, well, for me anyway. I am just going to talk about a process which has helped me unstick myself. So the thing is, I've been in an odd place for the last few years. Usually in my life when this happens, what I do is I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I've picked it up again. I've been sort of getting through it, and I thought some of this stuff is really helping. It's really helping me pull myself out of this stuckness that I've gotten myself into, this stagnation, and also these patterns of really negative thinking that have just blocked me and stopped me. And I used to be one of those people that I would make a decision that I was going to do something and I would somehow make it happen, right? I used to live one of those, almost like an inspired life. I was constantly using the law of attraction. I was saying I was going to do this thing, and then a synchronicity would happen, and all of a sudden I'd meet the right person that would put me in touch with somebody who would help me to create that thing. And I haven't lived that way for so long. And I'm like, oh God, how did my life end up like this? And I just kept realizing, okay, look, this thinking is not helping. Go to your Bible, go to your core, go to what resets you. And that for me is this book. So what triggered all of this? Well, I was listening to a podcast that Joe Rogan was doing with Louis C.K. Is it C.K. Lewis or Louis C.K.? I think Louis C.K. They were talking about how they knew people who were bullied when they were younger. And then they said something along the lines of, can you imagine what those people's lives are like now? They're probably just sort of stuck in a room, or probably scared to live life. And that never was me, because it was when I was a kid, but then I grew out of that because I read this book, and I wanted to create a life for myself. I started acting because I had all of these insecurities in communicating with people. I was so shy. I was painfully shy. So I would have my hands in my pockets, my shoulders would be up here, and I would look at the ground. Because in my school, if you looked somebody in the eyes, they would beat you up for no reason. Or so it was and I was a tubby little kid with very little self-esteem, but I was good at school in terms of academically. I was good, so I just focused on that and just did what I could to survive. But I think I've mentioned before in some of the other previous interviews I've done is that I've come from a family where there's narcissistic dynamics at play, and so I'm somebody who suffers with CPTSD, and I exhibit behaviours that are typical of codependent personalities, in quotation marks, codependents. So I kind of needed to find something that was going to work for people with those types of symptoms, which are hypervigilance, which is overconscientiousness, overgiving. You probably know what they are. So this led me to going back to my Bible, which is this book. And I think one of the things I noticed myself doing was, in the last few years where dramatic things have happened in my life, I began to lose faith in people, lose faith in humanity. And if you knew me when I was younger, you would think, wow, I mean, I was that guy with rose-tinted glasses, always believed there was good in everybody, and lived accordingly. In one way, I kind of wish I'd never lost that, because although it was heartbreaking to be negatively treated by people, and being silly enough to keep going back believing that there was good in that person. I'm glad that I don't do that anymore. But after a while, I did learn, okay, leave people be, man. There's that whole Maya Angelou thing. If you someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I didn't believe people the first time. I didn't believe people the fourth time. But I think eventually I was getting better at sort of believing people earlier. But what I noticed in the last few years is my life was beginning to seriously contract, because since, even before the pandemic really, in 2016 when I had my awakening and I began to figure out how the world really worked, my I began to see the darker side of humanity. It was like living all those years with rose-tinted glasses, and then because of this situation, this personal situation I found myself in, all of a sudden I began to see the darker side. And everywhere I looked, it's like I couldn't see the rose anymore. I couldn't see the sunlight anymore. I couldn't see the light in people. I was just seeing the dark in everybody. It was like, for me, that period since 2016 to now has been a fast track in looking at the darker side of humanity. It ain't fun, and it gets you stuck, and that's where that's got me to where we are now. So I want to share with you some of the things that I'm rereading. That was the word. I'm rereading in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that have begun to unpick some of those restraints that have been holding me down. So, first of all, I want you to see this image of the 7 habits. Okay? So, the way that it works is there are 3 levels of ways of being. You start off with dependence, and then there are 3 primary habits that you need to get through. They are be proactive, which is habit number 1. The second habit is begin with the end in mind. The third one is put first things first. Now, once you get those three habits down, this is how you create your private victory. And then, if you're carrying out those habits on a consistent basis, that will take you to a place of independence, which is the second tier of your development, right? So once you get to independence, you can then work on the next 3 habits, which are habit 4, think win-win. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And habit 6, which is synergize. Once you're consistently exhibiting those habits in your life, then that takes you to a place of interdependence, which is the 3rd tier of the way of living. And then once you've got to that point, you continually work on the other 6 habits again and again and again, and that's called sharpening the saw, which is habit number 7. Okay? So in a nutshell, that's how the 7 habits work. In this video, we're going to look at the habit 1 and habit 2. Okay? Just because I think that's what I've needed to unstick myself. I probably will do habit 3 and habit 4 and the other habits as well. I probably will do the other habits, but I don't know when I'm going to do them. It just depends on, as I work through them myself and hopefully seeing the positive impact of that, I will do the videos as and when. But today, when I was going through this book and looking at all the things I'd underlined, just reading them began to unstick me, so I wanted to share that with you in case it helps you too. The first habit is be proactive. One of the first things that really helped me was this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can hurt you without your consent. And I was thinking to myself, okay, is that true? I'm like, well, family members have done things which have hurt me. Ex-partners have done things that have hurt me. Colleagues have done things that have really affected me. But I'm like, did I give them my permission? Did I give them my consent? And I kind of thought, I did. Because when they did that thing, it was like a slap on my face. But they could have done that thing to me. It could have had that same impact. But I didn't need to respond in that way, right? Because in this book, there's this whole section on stimulus and response. There's a gap in between stimulus, the things that your family have done or whoever has done, and then response, how you react to that. But how you react, there's a gap in between that. So you can either react, so if someone slaps you, you slap back, that's a reaction, It's a reactive response. But someone can slap you, and you could be like, I'm going to think about my response, and then I'm going to respond in a somewhat mature way. And back in the day when I read this book the first time around, that's what I was doing. And I was able to really get people on side and just, get amazing outcomes from crazy situations. And I've forgotten about that. I just haven't been choosing my reaction so much. And so that's something that I need to pick up again. Another quote. This one's from Mahatma Gandhi. They cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them. So I was thinking, was I giving my self-respect away to these people? I'm like, I kind of was. And recently I've been letting the adverse treatment from other people, I've been reacting, and I've just been giving them a reactive response and allowing it to affect my belief in humanity. And that has to shift. I am a good person. I've been fighting for truth and for good to happen for other people my entire life. And I believe that to be true. I know that to be true. So it doesn't matter what other people say about me. I know that I have tried my best to do that. Maybe I could have tried harder if I'm honest, but I've tried pretty hard to live a life of integrity and live from a principle-centered place, which is what this book is all about. So I can say that with some confidence because I really put my heart and soul into that. So, as a result, did I give away my self-respect? Did I allow them to hurt me without my consent? I think I did. So I need to take that back. And this is me taking that back and picking myself back up and unsticking myself. One of the things Stephen R Covey goes on to say in this book is, I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday. Until I can say this, I can't choose otherwise. And the way to begin to unstick yourself is to choose otherwise. So you have to accept that. And I accept it. I'm basically 15 stones in weight again, and at my heaviest weight I was like just over 15 stones when I was 17 years old. So I'm almost back to my heaviest weight, and I won't weigh myself because I won't allow myself to. I don't even want to know, but I do need to. So after I've finished making this video, I will go and check my weight because I want to know exactly what it is. I am today because of the choices I made yesterday. So I don't even lie. I haven't exercised in about a year, and I've been eating so much chocolate and so much croissants and bread stuff and sugar. I've been terrible. I've been shocking. So I accept that. I accept that, and I accept that I need to make a change. There's a section in the book where he talks about having versus being. And it's like, I'll be happy when I have more money. I'll be happy when I've lost weight. And I'll start looking for a partner when I've lost weight. Or I'll start living my authentic life once I've made a bit more money. So I'll stay in the job for a bit longer. Even though I hate the job, I'll just stay for a little bit longer so that I can develop security. And once I have enough security, once I've got enough money saved away, then I'll leave, right? And he says, those are all haves. But you want to shift that to bees. So you want to change that to... Did I put it here or not? Actually, what he says is that your life gets put on pause when you do that. And it's no life at all. And you really have to change that to living from a place of being instead. Let me quickly find that. So he says, anytime we think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem. We empower what's out there to control us. The change paradigm is outside in. What's out there has to change before we can change. So, and that doesn't work. We have to change first, inside, and then the external changes. So I'm just going to quickly read this little section because he talks about this proactive approach, and then he gives a little example using Joseph and from the Bible. Joseph and his brothers, you know that story. Okay. The proactive approach is to change from the inside out, to be different. And by being different, to effect positive change in what's out there. I can be more resourceful. I can be more diligent. I can be more creative. I can be more cooperative. One of my favourite stories is one in the Old Testament, part of the fundamental fabric of the Judeo-Christian tradition. It's the story of Joseph, who was sold into slavery in Egypt by his brothers at the age of 17. Can you imagine how easy it would have been for him to languish in self-pity as a servant of Potiphar, to focus on the weaknesses of his brothers and his captors, and on all he didn't have? But Joseph was proactive. He worked on B, and within a short period of time, he was running Potiphar's house. He was in charge of all that Potiphar had, because the trust in him was so high. It kind of reminded me of Shawshank Redemption, if you've seen the film. Okay, then the day came when Joseph was caught in a difficult situation and refused to compromise his integrity. As a result, he was unjustly imprisoned for 13 years. But again, he was proactive. He worked on his inner circle of influence, on being instead of having. And soon he was running the prison, and eventually the entire nation of Egypt, second only to the Pharaoh. I know this is a dramatic paradigm shift for many people. It is so much easier to blame other people, or conditioning, or conditions for our own stagnant situation. But we are responsible. Response-able. To control our lives and to powerfully influence our circumstances by working on B, on what we are. So I thought that was a good little example to explain how the proactive approach works, right? So while we are free to choose our actions, though, we are not free to choose the consequences that come along with that. We have to act according to what we believe to be right action, what we believe to be acting in accordance with our principles and our integrity. But one of the things that he talks about in the book is that we are not free to choose the consequences. The consequences are governed by natural law. So, in a weird way, that kind of frees you though, so you don't even have to think about it. You just have to act from what you believe to be right, and then the consequences take care of themselves, whether they are positive or negative. If you take a principle-centered approach, as taught in this book, then one way or another you land on your feet. And I remember back in the day when I had friends who would say, it doesn't seem, no matter what happens to you, you always land on your feet. That's what they used to say to me in my 20s. And I never really thought about it, but it was true. And the reason for that was because no matter what happened, I always took a proactive approach. And I didn't let these things get me down. I just picked myself up and figured out what was the next best solution I can create for myself with these circumstances. And I always did that. And that was a really good way to live life. Right, let's move on. Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. To begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, and so that the steps you need to take are always in the right direction. In a nutshell. So, begin with the end in mind is that whole law of attraction thing. What is it that you want to create? If you have a solid understanding of what it is that you want, then you can, you're allowing natural law to help you along the way, but also you can make a practical plan, step by step, to take you to that destination, right? So one of the things that he talks about in this book is leadership and management. This comes under the begin with the end in mind, because you need to know what it is that you want to create. Now, people get confused. What is the difference between leadership and management? So I'm going to read from the book. Leadership is not management. Management is the second creation. Leadership comes first. Management is a bottom line focus. How can I best accomplish certain things? Leadership deals with the top line. What are the things I want to accomplish? In the words of both Peter Drucker and Warren Bennis, management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. I thought that was a good little description. I actually heard somebody say it in a show recently. I can't remember where it was, but I heard them say, "Oh, the ladder isn't on the right wall," or something like that. And I suddenly thought they've been reading Seven Habits, because that was the first place I heard that saying. Maybe it's an older saying, I don't know, but I read it in the book first. He talks about creating a personal mission statement. Now, I wrote one back in the day, and when I had a look at it, it's so funny. I don't know when I did this, but I'd gone through it and I'd crossed out loads of lines, and it was about a page and a half, and I'd reduced it down to about 2/3 of a page, all in all. So I guess somewhere along, because remember I wrote the first one in 1999, so somewhere along the line I was like, nope, not doing that, not doing that, not doing that anymore. So my mission statement has been reduced. I think I might need to write a new one, because I have changed so much in the last few years. But the whole point is you create a mission statement which sets forth your personal modus operandi, and then how you live your life is in alignment with that mission statement. And so you live a life of principle-centered leadership and integrity, but by adhering to your personal mission statement, depending on how you want your life to move forwards now. He gives a great what would you say? He gives a great idea about visualizing your funeral, and imagine the people coming to your funeral and the things that they would say, and then about you now, and then think about the things that you would want them to say, you would want people to say, and then that will help you construct a mission statement, and then live in accordance with those values, and then so shall you have those people at your funeral saying those things. So in terms of looking at the 2 habits, that's pretty much it. I wasn't going to go into too much detail, I don't want to make the video too long, but that's a quick shortcut into the ways of thinking that have been helping me unstick myself. But there was one other thing that I wanted to mention for people who have CPTSD and codependents. Doing a bit of cardio exercise, whether you're jogging, running, cycling, whatever it is that you could do, not really HIIT, and I'm sure HIIT will also help, but if you just do sort of light cardio exercise for a decent period of time, so like 30 minutes, 40 to 45 minutes, an hour, or even more if you want to, it's really helpful for people with CPTSD or codependence, because we are typically hypervigilant. And hypervigilance means that we're over-adrenalized our system. And so one of the ways that we can remove that adrenaline is by exercising, doing light cardio. And what it does is it removes it from our system. So therefore we're not as anxious. We don't let our anxieties get the better of us, because once that adrenaline has gone, we can relax more, and we can think more clearly. So I think it's really, for me, I've got, eating issues anyway, so it's a good thing for me to do. But I remember back in the day, one of the biggest things that I did is I worked out, I did cardio every single day without fail. I think over a period of 3.5 years, I think I only missed two days of cardio. And I remember how helpful that was. For me, I made it part of my habit, almost like brushing my teeth. So I did it every day without fail. So, I think that would be another tactic, another thing that would help you, a tool, let's say. So for this video, I'm going to leave it there. But do leave me a message below if it was helpful, if there were other things, if you read the book and you have other things that you think people would benefit from. Let me know in the comment section, and I will get back to you. I'll respond when I can. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and click the notification bell, and I will endeavour to make more content like this. Thank you very much. I hope this helped. Thank you.